Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here on Monday, August 11th, after the Toronto Blue Jays salvaged a series against the Los Angeles Dodgers with one of the most wild comebacks you will ever see. Mason Fluharty playing hero against a pair of MVPs. I'm your host, Zach Worden, joined as always by Jori Negin-Shecter. And to break it all down and everything Toronto Blue Jays, we have Mitch Bannon, Blue Jays beat writer at The Athletic, back on the show. Mitch, thanks again for taking the time to do this, and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View.
No problem. Happy to be back as always. It's a fun time to be talking about the Jays, that's for sure.
It's been quite the season for them. And before we kind of dive into the team, I just want to say congrats on your gig with The Athletic and ask, kind of how you've been enjoying it. Obviously, great season to kind of jump in and kind of have this role with the team. How have you been enjoying the year as, the Athletics beat writer?
Yeah, it's been great. I would be lying if I said I thought I was going to be covering a first place team or the best team in the American League when I signed on. I don't think that's a crazy take to have had a couple months ago, but it's certainly been fun. It's certainly been fun kind of seeing a lot of fans flood back to the Blue Jays and be interested in my content. That's always good when the team is good, but it's been good. Been out on the road a lot more, seeing a bunch of random American cities I haven't seen before, which is great. It's good to be around the team.
What's been the number one ballpark that you have got to visit for the first time this year?
I'm up to 20 now. I'm at
Oh,
20.
wow.
I guess it's probably more like 30 out of 31. I don't know what you count as Sacramento. PNC, Pittsburgh is still my number one, but I'd been there before. I'm going
Okay.
there, I guess, next week in a few days here. That is and will probably remain my number one, but the best one I've been to this year, it's a good question. I really liked Coors. I
Yeah.
thought Coors was really cool. It's just beautiful. And it's also just like it's just weird. Like obviously that series in Coors was crazy, but it's just like the outfield is so big. I know a lot of people and I'm kind of a proponent of this, talk about like, oh, we should rebuild the polo grounds and like play a series at like the old stadium. Honestly, I feel like that's just what every single series at Coors is anyway, so we don't need to do that.
It was, yeah. I mean, that was obviously a wild series for them to, set all those hitting records in the three-game set. How much do you think that it was like the like if you had to kind of rank it or kind of like, give a percentage, how much of the percentage was that series the Blue Jays, how much of that percentage was Coors, and how much of that percentage of that series was the Rockies?
Oh, that's such a good question. Okay, I think a lot of it was the Rockies pitching in particular, because the Blue Jays pitching did really well. Like it's not like that was happening to both sides of the baseball. There wasn't 40 runs, so I'm going to give a lot of credit to the Blue Jays hitters, and not necessarily because they played well. Like obviously they played well to score
Yeah.
45 runs, but this offense, especially like the guys at the bottom of the order, the Ernie Clements, like Ernie Clement is built for Coors Field. Like the outfielders have to play so far back to cover this ground that all of his kind of sinking line drives over the infielders are just going to be hits no matter where guys play. So I think the lineup was kind of built in a big way. So it's kind of like a combo 50%, 60% between like the Blue Jays offense and how it played in cores. And then the rest was, yeah, the Rockies pitching staff is not very good.
Yeah, the core series was nothing short of a there's a lot of words I guess you could use to describe that series. Chaos is probably the big one. And then of course, obviously just now coming off the Dodgers series, a lot of highs, a lot of lows. Uh, Maybe we'll start kind of from the beginning of the series or at least the first two games. How do you feel like that kind of sets the Jays up in terms of stacking up with the reigning World Series champions and ultimately the way that things did play out, at least in the first two games?
Yeah, I think the game one and game two almost seem kind of like different to me in a way. Like game one, those first couple innings against Kershaw, the Jays had a ton of hits. Like they looked like they were kind of on top of him. They just weren't necessarily cashing in the runs. I guess like the first couple innings of game two were kind of the same. I think it shows the way this Jays team is built. Like obviously they got the homers in game three and that kind of lifted them to the victory, but this is a team that is built on cashing in runs with scoring position, moving guys over, not like letting these opportunities pass. And at the beginning of the season, when they kind of led the league in singles for the first month, but still weren't a particularly good offense, it's because they weren't cashing in those runs. It's not like they've started hitting for power, they've turned into extra base machines in the next couple months. They've just been able to drive those guys in. And I think when you get to October, if you get to the World Series against a team like the Dodgers, it just shows you like can't go 1 or 2 for 10 in runners with runners in scoring position. Like that's just true for every single team. You can't let those opportunities pass. And the Jays probably more so than others because the games where they get home runs from Barger and Guerrero are just not going to come around as often. So I think it kind of just like really highlights that if the Jays are going to play really good teams, they can beat them. It's just going to come at not missing those opportunities because the team is good enough to single off good pitchers. Like they're going to get their hits off good guys. They're going to take their walks against Blake Snell, but they have to capitalize on those opportunities because other teams are going to hit 2 home runs. They're going to have Shohei Ohtani launch you to the seats. So you have kind of have to punch back in the way the Jays can.
For game three yesterday, as that kind of unfolds, obviously, you mentioned the home runs, Vlad, Barger, Ernie Clement comes up big in the ninth inning with the go-ahead homer. But I mean, I guess almost, that the headline from that game is Mason Fluharty kind of going out and getting Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts to get them out to end the inning and kind of escape this save with the bases loaded after Jeff Hoffman kind of struggles to find the strike zone. What was kind of your reaction watching that game, seeing Fluharty coming in for that situation? And I mean, I guess the answer might be a little bit obvious, but what was your expectation as he was running in out of the bullpen there?
Yeah, I think it's, and I read some quotes. I wasn't in LA, but I read some quotes from Ernie Clement that didn't necessarily say this, but basically said like we were just hoping to get out of there with 1 run, like get them to tie the game. Maybe you get a sac fly from Otani and you get the ground out for Mookie Betts. That was kind of like a 99th percentile outcome. I'm not sure anyone could have expected him to punch out Otani and then get Betts on the grounder. It was pretty insane. I think like that's the Mason Fluharty we saw the first month of the season when he came up. And I talked to a bunch of people down in AAA who've kind of helped him on his rise through the minors, and they talked about like Fluharty's big jump this year. Obviously, it's like his pitch mix is kind of more refined. He's able to get lefties and righties out, but they really thought that his ability to like read at bats and kind of rise to these big moments. Like someone mentioned to me, he's like built for a big inning at Yankee Stadium. Like that's the difference now between old Mason Fluharty. And I think when he got sent down, it was a little of like he'd lost that confidence, that kind of swagger. I He's got to have it back now. If you don't get that swagger back from, he's been pretty good since he's come back up. But if that's not like a nice little exclamation mark on him, kind of like coming back to the big leagues, getting 2 MVPs out, I don't know what is.
I'm interested by your note there on, him going down to AAA and then finding his game again from where he was when he first came up. And this kind of resurgence from him has interestingly also kind of coincided with Brendan Little kind of coming back down to earth to a certain extent. How do you think yesterday's game is going to play into the dynamics of the bullpen moving forward? Because not only the lefty situation there, but Jeff Hoffman, of course, really struggles as well after about a week off. And, he's had his moments. He's had moments of just, to put it lightly, like pure electricity. I remember right after the All-Star break, he came in and was absolutely shoving. But there's been ups and downs at times with him. I feel like yesterday's game was, I mean, you literally saw every reliever. It certainly feels like a game where the bullpen hierarchy maybe gets a little bit of a shuffle.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and I'm gonna be at the ballpark tomorrow, and I'm sure it'll be a conversation with Schneider before the game to try to suss this out. It's the lefties are kind of like in their own bucket, where it's like I don't expect Brendan Little or Mason Fluharty to be immediately become the ninth inning guys for this team. Those are definitely matchup guys, and Little, I guess both of them have been able to get righties out pretty well this year, at least during stretches. I think Little's pitched a lot of innings this year. Beginning of the year, he was talking about how his stuff just doesn't break the same when he's a little more tired. So I think like having 2 lefties in that bullpen will allow them to kind of pace that down the stretch. And you just need Little to be in a good spot come October at this point. Yeah, weird things can happen. This team could fall, but if we're being honest, this is going to probably be an October baseball team, and the next 6 weeks are about playing for seeding and setting up for that. And yeah, if you lean on Mason Fluharty a little more down the next 6 weeks, so you can get the best version of Brendan Little in October, I think that's a great thing for the organization to do. Hoffman, kind of a whole different discussion. It's like Yeah, when he's at his best, he is one of the better closers in baseball. There's a reason he's saved so many games for this team. He's pitched like 3 to 4 days against the Yankees and almost single-handedly won a series in the ninth innings and 10th innings of those games. But it's just like not that consistent. I think the good thing is, and it didn't necessarily happen last night, is like you can kind of tell when Jeff Hoffman is on or off in the first like 3 or 4 pitches of his at
Yeah.
bat. It's like, is the command there? Can he dot the fastball? Is he immediately turning to his breaking stuff? Like, is the pitch mix just looking a little weird? So I expect them to ride with Jeff Hoffman. And if I was the manager of the Jays, I probably would continue to ride with Hoffman. But I think like the leash, the parachute is going to be a little bit of a quicker pull down the stretch because it's kind of been obvious when he's on and off. I think they're going to try to get him in a bit better of a routine. They've been talking about that all season, like these like 4 out of 5s followed by a week off just like aren't good for any reliever. I don't think
Yeah.
any even any kind of like employee anywhere. If you like work for 5 days, went on vacation, come back, those first couple days, it's like, what the hell am I doing? I kind of forget how it works. Like that's kind of what Jeff Hoffman when he's going on vacation and coming back and trying to get his feet under him. So he's really good, I think, when it's like he has exactly 1 day off. So I don't know if they'll try to get him back on kind of a on and off kind of schedule. I think that would be better for him. But I think, yeah, if he continues to show this inconsistency, the Jays just have to be willing to pull the parachute pretty quickly.
Another guy, also just on the topic of the bullpen, Louis Varland has been, in some respects, maybe not a revelation, but certainly everything you could have asked for in terms of deadline ads. Obviously, in a strong outing just yesterday, coming in relief of Lauer, and we'll get into all of that as well. I just kind of want your assessment on the early returns on him and his spot maybe in the bullpen. Could he become like a setup guy? I mean, he's been used as that in parts, but not necessarily consistently. Do you read anything to maybe them using him earlier yesterday as opposed to going to him later in the game? And then even beyond that, any potential thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think just kind of starting at the end there. Overall, I think he's a great compliment to the bullpen because he brings a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, which they did not have before the deadline. And he's like a really high ground ball guy, which this is a team built of fly ball pitchers. And yeah, Sir Anthony Dominguez more of a swing and miss guy, but it's a lot of fly ball pitchers, and we've seen a lot of those fly balls go over the wall. So he is kind of the opposite of that. And I think back to this is going to sound like a weird comp, but Adam Simber a couple years ago, it's like he would come in with a guy on first base seemingly like every day down, I guess it was the 21 stretch. It's like
Yeah.
seventh inning, first guy gets on, Adam Simber's coming in, ground ball, double play, get out of there. Like Louis Varland is just like an even more elite version of that, where he can do that and he can get the swing and miss and he throws 100 and he's got like a power knuckle curve. Like he's just like a really useful weapon. I think the difficult thing is I don't really expect, especially if Jimmy Garcia doesn't come back, which it's seeming less and less likely every single day, there to be like an established eighth inning guy. I
Yeah.
think it's just like you have Little for your lefty line, you have Sir Anthony Dominguez when you need the swing and miss, and you're kind of maybe more open to a walk. You got Louis when you need a ground ball. Like you can just go down and kind of like see the easy spots you're going to use everyone, and maybe that's in the fourth inning because you need 30 pitches and you're pulling the parachute on Eric Lauer really quick, which I loved. That was a very aggressive move. That's getting him out of there pretty quick was a great move. But I think just like seeing the lines and the lanes where you can use all these guys is going to be John Schneider's job. Like he's definitely a favorite to win AL Manager of the Year right now, and he's got 6 weeks of pretty aggressive managing to go with the bullpen roles.
Yeah, it's super interesting, the way that they've kind of constructed the bullpen because they almost in a way, they all tie into each other, right? Like they have so many different options, whether it's to be aggressive with their starters, or I think even like the Hoffman conversation plays in a little bit too, where, we saw him maybe get a little bit overworked early in the season, and it seems like the bullpen moves allow them to not do that. Obviously, the Rockies series kind of played into this week off for him, but I think that they are able to, you don't have to use them 3 days and 4 days now, or 3 games in 4 days because you have so many different options. I kind of want to just like get your overall thoughts on the deadline. Like, I mean, what did you kind of think as it unfolded? Obviously, breaking the Twins trade with Louis Varland and Ty France. What was kind of your reaction as it all came down, and how do you think that it kind of set them up for this run to October and potentially beyond?
Yeah, yeah, it was. I think it's like just a perfectly solid B plus deadline. I don't think there's any other way to look at it because they very obviously addressed every single need that they went into the deadline wanting to add. They had two relievers. They added starting depth in maybe a more creative way than even I thought they were going to be able to do. Like I thought it was going to be a Steven Matz, Sean Newcomb type where it's like a swing man who could pinch hit at the back of the rotation. They did it an even more creative way by getting Bieber, who could pinch hit in a couple weeks at the top of the rotation. So
Yeah.
that's certainly fun. I really like that move. And then yeah, the Varland and France adds at the buzzer there. Like yeah, Ty France has been pretty good for this team. Like I know he's not necessarily like if there was an easy spot to like have a better deadline, push this into an A minus A deadline. Like if you replace the Ty France move with like a Ramon Liriano or Ryan O'Hearn, yeah, it's probably like an A deadline. You're probably running away, but you're probably moving another top five prospect to do that. So I think it was like a perfectly conservative, good deadline and where they kept the top tier of the system, moved kind of that second tier, which they've been kind of prone to draw from in previous buying deadlines, and filled every need. I think the swing of the deadline is obviously Shane Bieber. Like he's
Yeah.
the guy, they're their upside swing. Yeah, you get the term in Varland, but it's like, what can Bieber give them? What are his 5 to 9 starts with the Toronto Blue Jays organization look like? And if there's a guy you're going to put your all your eggs in the basket of, it's a great guy to do it. Want to Cy Young? He's looked really good in the rehab. See everything I've heard. He's like a phenomenal worker. He's like a great clubhouse guy. So just put your eggs in the Shane Bieber basket and hope he can take you to glory.
Do you get the sense, and again, the deadline is almost ancient history at this point, 10 odd days ago, but do you get the sense that they wanted to be or could have been more aggressive at the deadline?
I wanted to been as tough because I think this team. My understanding is this team like asks on literally everybody. Like they were definitely asking on Stephen Kwan as a lot of teams were. Like they were talking about John Duran, Mason Miller. Like they were in those markets, but it's kind of like they're in those markets every single offseason, every single deadline because they just like they have this army of executives that they just say, okay, go out, ask, report back on the price of these guys. So like trying to evaluate how serious that interest was is difficult in my position because you just kind of hear things and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
there's interest there, but it's like, okay, what is interest? I think they definitely like would have made a bigger move, could have made a bigger move. I just think that they got beat on some price points that they were comfortable with. Like the way this front office works, they're probably never going to outbid a Dave Dombrowski who's just like willing to overpay to get the guy. Whether or not you think that's a good thing is ultimately up to the fan or the other executive in baseball who decides to do that. It's just not how this org functions. So I think they kind of. I am curious how they evaluate their deadline. Like, do they see it as the BB plus that we do, or do they see it more like an A minus A? I kind of almost hope they see it as an A. Like, you want to see all of your moves as like really good moves, but they were definitely interested in like more established players than they got. It's just kind of like hard to know how realistic they thought those were.
How willing do you think kind of the Savage and Namala, like were they kind of willing to do those moves, or was it kind of they were really like, kind of I mean, obviously they were going to be super protective of those guys, but I mean, like on, if there kind of was that willingness, like how far would have they been willing to go to do that?
I'm gonna write something tomorrow actually.
Oh,
Mention this, but I've heard that they were open to moving those guys.
okay.
Like, it's not like they were off the table in talks.
Yeah.
Like they discussed deals that would have included those guys. They probably do that every single deadline with their top prospects, from what I've heard. But it's not like they were like, "Oh, Joe and Duran, we're not moving these guys for him." I just think it's like what the entire package looks like, what the Twins ultimately ended up getting from the Phillies for him. It's not like they were off the table, from what
For
I
sure.
understand.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Obviously, they did pay a pretty big price for basically all their guys. I think you kind of look at the way that the farm systems performed this year and you feel pretty good about all the guys that they moved. So I think, yeah, at the end of the day, it was a big price.
A year ago, imagine if this team wasn't like going to be a 74 win team a year ago. Like
Yeah.
if they were at this spot in the deadline with the year the farm system was having, it would have been rough. Like there would have been a lot of fans who were upset with the deadline haul just because the system was not in a great spot to bring in guys. We're 12 months later, and I've talked to people who reviewed the J system, like inside baseball, other executives. It's like a good system. They think it's
Yeah.
like taken a huge jump. They call it deep, which is not something we've heard like the J system referred to the last couple of years. Like it's really impressive, and like the farm system deserves a lot of credit. And maybe it's not like sexy to like look at prospects and that you traded and be like, wow, this was a good, like this was a player development win. But the farm system put the Jays in a really good spot to kind
Yeah.
of fill their needs this deadline.
I mean,
And it's the
it
pitching too, right? It's the fact that they reached so deep into the pitching
Yeah.
and were able to use those bullets to go out and get guys.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like it's they went from having like no pitching prospects, healthy pitching prospects a year ago to like, yeah, we can move Cal Steven and Kendry Rojas and still be in like a pretty good spot and still not feel like we're gonna have zero rotation depth in a year.
yeah. I want to get more into the Bieber conversation as far as it goes down the stretch here. With when he returns, kind of sounds like maybe another rehab start, or we'll kind of see obviously what John Schneider says tomorrow. But I guess kind of for you, evaluating this team, where the rotation's at. Obviously, the rest of the way is kind of determining who might be your playoff starters. Everybody kind of wants to have that conversation. But even before we get to that point, do you think the six-man rotation is going to be the way for them to go once Bieber is kind of back and able to pitch again?
Do I think it's like optimal? No. I think this team has too many off days and that guys like Max Scherzer and Kevin Gausman are like very stuck in their ways is the bad word, but it's like they're routine oriented guys and adding like an off day plus an added extra day
Yeah.
is like it's a big ask on those guys. But do I think they're going to do it? At this point, honestly, I do. And that's like more of a gut feel than anything else, just like kind of reading between the lines at what the coaching staff is saying. Like they're being like pretty cagey when you ask them about, hey, what's it going to be in 2 weeks? It's a lot of these things work themselves out, or it's like I asked a question the other day trying to come at it from a new angle where it's like, what are the things you look at in a starter that would succeed being moved to the bullpen? And even that kind of got a non-answer. Like, we'll see. It's all about what happens in the moment. So they're being pretty cagey about their plans, and like rightfully so. Like you don't want to give away anything to the competition, and also like you don't want to lay out this plan and have, let's say you're moving Eric Lauer to the bullpen, and then Jose Barrios goes on the IL, and you're like, oh, it's like Eric, you're actually like back in the rotation. Don't worry, we weren't going to move you to the bullpen the whole time. So I kind of get it, but
Yeah.
my gut right now is at least for a little bit they will run a six man before maybe those final couple weeks before the playoffs. You pare it back down to line up your guys. You like adjust stuff so you know who's pitching in what game once October starts. So that's just my gut feel at this time.
I'm interested that you don't even really feel like yesterday's, or at least the sense I get is that yesterday's Lauer, I don't know if you want to call it a blow up. I mean, they yanked him pretty early, but ultimately you don't give any credence to maybe his stumble yesterday.
I just think it's like you could have put Kevin Gausman in there against the Dodgers and Shohei Ohtani, and it's like the same thing could have happened. It's just, yeah, like one bad start at this point when the margins are so narrow for the guys in these rotations and there's so few jobs to fight for could impact it. Just like if there's ever a start I'm willing to throw out, it's like a day game after a night game with the kind of like a B lineup against a Dodgers team with a bunch of MVPs. I like if he stumbles again, I think it's like okay, yeah, we can have the conversation. It's just yeah, one start against the Dodgers, I'm not putting my eggs in. It's obviously there's one guy in this rotation with less of a track record than everyone else, and it's Eric Lauer. There's also one guy in this rotation who's pitched better than everyone else for the last 3 months, and it's Eric Lauer. So it's kind of like a weird push and pull.
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible, like the breakout that he's had. One guy who maybe it's not quite a breakout, but almost a resurgence. You wrote this morning about George Springer. For everybody listening, go check that out at The Athletic. How Blue Jays got the best version of George Springer, reversed his decline. Obviously he hasn't been back in the lineup at AAA yet as we're awaiting his return from a concussion. I guess before we dive into Springer specifically, kind of another roster crunch that they're going to have is what they're going to do when Andres Jimenez and George Springer are back in the big league. It seems, pretty obvious Buddy Kennedy will go down for Jimenez. But what do you kind of expect the move for Springer to be? Because, whether it be Joey Loperfido, David Schneider, like those guys have been playing pretty well, so it's going to be a tough decision for them.
Yeah, I don't envy John Schneider and the coaching staff on this one. I think there's often like difficult decision throughout a baseball season, whether it's when you're bringing Mason Flaherty in the ninth inning of a close game, or it's who the heck do you send down when George Springer comes back in the next couple days, hopefully soon. It's kind of dragged out a little longer than I think a lot of people thought, and myself included. But yeah, I think from an asset management, like a pure like stat sheet perspective, you probably send down Loperfido or Schneider. And I think you look at kind of like the run of the next 10 days, how many lefties versus righties are you going to line up for?
Yeah.
Make the call based on that and tell the guy, whoever gets sent down, this is not your fault. We know you're playing great. You're going to be back on September 1st when we get that extra roster spot. It's going to be a tough conversation because whoever gets sent down, unless like another injury pops up and makes this a lot easier, is not going to deserve to be sent down. And your only other option is DFAing Ty France, and he's played well. And I
Yeah.
think they kind of like him as that backup first baseman. If anything, if Vlad needs a couple days down the stretch, if they need kind of like a righty bat off the bench in the postseason, so I don't think it makes sense to cut a guy like that loose just to like not hurt the feelings of a guy for 10 days. You're gonna have to have the difficult conversation, but it is a difficult one for sure.
I'm really interested that you've pointed to one of those guys as potentially being a 27th, 28th man when September 1st rolls around. When not only Bieber is likely going to be in the picture and added to the rotation, but Alek Manoah also a guy that's kind of rehabbing and working his way up. And obviously the results have been pretty mixed, but it feels like there's going to be a couple guys vying for those two extra spots.
Yeah, I'd have to like bust out my digital PDF of the rule book, but I'm pretty sure you get one pitcher and one hitter
Yeah.
there. So it's kind of like a thanks for coming out every other pitcher. You're just going to be behind Shane Bieber in the depth chart here. Like obviously there could be like a you rotate through a Tommy Nance, even though he's been great just to like get a fresh arm, a live arm up there. I think with Alex specifically, like the Bieber trade, albeit short term, it makes it harder for him to get back to the big leagues. It might be the best thing that's ever happened to him in the last couple of years because it's the pressure is just ratcheted so far down on the need to have him as like a depth option down the stretch. There's just so many guys kind of ahead of him on the pecking order. He can just focus on like finishing this year strong, getting the command back in the upper minors, and just know he's going to come into next spring training fighting for a spot. They need him if something happens and they need a long man in October. Great, he'll still be pitching by then because he doesn't have many innings this year. But I just think it's ratcheted down the pressure there. Having Bieber is kind of like the obvious addition there in September, and then you're probably if everyone stays healthy, you're just bringing back the guy you just sent down on the hitting side there. So
Yeah.
if Anthony Santander comes back, if Jimmy Garcia gets back, it's going to get really messy. It's going to be like, what the hell do we do? We have too many good players. But if the status quo holds, I think it shouldn't be too complicated.
Better than not having enough good players, I guess, is the easy way to frame it. It's better to have
Listen,
tough
we all
decisions.
watched the 2024 season, Zach.
I guess kind of I'll let you speak a little bit about Springer, not to give away too much of your piece, but I guess kind of, for him being like almost the engine of this Blue Jays, I know, you know, we talk about them kind of going through this tough stretch and, Springer has largely been absent for most of it. Like just how important has he been both on and off the field to this Blue Jays team being where they are?
Yeah, I think when the Blue Jays signed George Springer, was it 4 years ago now, 5 years ago now, that he was supposed to kind of like bring a new tide on the hitting side of this team. He's supposed to lead the young group. And for a while, he kind of did that. But there was like a lot of other cooks in the kitchen there. Like the Marcus Semien was a big voice in the clubhouse and a great player in the lineup. Matt Chapman kind of filled that hole too. This team has a lot of leaders on the pitching side too. But George Springer is like very clearly a loud voice in this room. And it's a lot easier to be that loud voice when you're also, by some stats, the best hitter in this lineup. Like he has a better OPS plus than Vlad right now, I believe. Maybe not after last night's game. It could have, at least when I wrote the story, he did. But he's been arguably the best hitter on this team. He's having arguably the second best offensive season he's ever had. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. And just like the way he's kind of reformed his approach, unlocked the aggression again, been like more content with swing and miss. But then like with that mindset, the swing and miss hasn't like come either. He's still not whiffing that much more than he was last year. It's just been really impressive. There's clearly some like approach tweaks, some mechanical tweaks that have been like very hush hush, both by Springer and the hitting staff. No one really wants to like talk about the state secrets on his mechanical tweaks, but like he's getting to his ideal launch angle more than he ever has in his career. And like that's not something you do when you're slowing down at age 35. It's just really impressive. And on the base running side, I think a lot of been base running has been kind of a good allegory for the Jays' success this year when it's like they're not a fast team. This is not a speedy team, but they just like got better at base running. It was like a concerted effort, it was a buy-in from the players. And there's no one who's kind of a better encapsulation that more than Springer. Not a particularly fast guy, but has been a very good base runner throughout his entire career. And like it doesn't take like a data analyst or like a scout to see him running the bases really well in a game. It's just really obvious when he goes first to home, first to third, makes those plays, and kind of does it with an electricity that's palpable throughout the clubhouse.
And the success for Springer, not obviously only on the running side, on the hitting side particularly, it seems like sustainable. He's going to be fighting, father time, and that's a battle no one really wants to be fighting. But he sure is putting up a good a good battle here, and it seems like he's going to be a factor for the Jays even into next season.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think so. I had a conversation in Colorado with hitting coach David Popkins, and he said we kind of expected like the early season surge we saw from George. Maybe not to the extent that he was able to do it, but they expected him to have a bit of like a bounce back, just with the aggression that pitchers probably weren't going to be prepared for. The impressive part has been the longevity. Like they have spent a lot of time keeping him off his feet. He has not played much outfield this year. What he has not played a particularly good outfield, so that definitely factors in as well. But they've been very good at kind of managing his workload to allow him to fight off the fatigue that you think a 35-year-old would have over the course of the season. But also the league has adjusted to him in a lot of different ways. Like you look at kind of like the pitch percentages and specific counts that opposing righties and lefties are using against him. Every month they're trying something new. And like he just had his best month of the season in July. So he's able to combat both fatigue and kind of the adjustments from the league in a way that I don't think even the most optimistic kind of Blue Jays analysts thought, but it's been very impressive.
It feels a little bit like, and Zach and I have talked about this. I don't know if you recall, but a couple of years back, Joey Votto kind of had a similar sort of resurgence, and it feels like they're both kind of cerebral guys, veteran guys. I don't know. It just felt like something that was kind of there were some parallels. It felt like.
Yeah, I think like every so often, I think that's the thing I love about baseball more than anything else. And it's like you see it in like a Spencer Torkelson. He was
Yeah.
supposed to be like amazing. He's now very good, but he's like not even the same player that he was on the draft day. And it's like you can make an adjustment that unlocks you when you're 23, or you can make an adjustment that unlocks you when you're 35. It's just the way that all of like the outcomes of baseball are so this is my stuff versus your stuff. You can change something that changes the whole equation, makes it so that these guys can have crazy breakouts at any point in their career. And obviously, I don't know if this is a breakout for Springer or a re-breakout, whatever you want to call it, but he's clearly found something here.
Mitch, one thing I've really enjoyed about your work this season has kind of been your writing around some of the prospects in the system and being able to connect with some of those guys. Before, I want to ask kind of your larger assessment of some of the guys in the system. But kind of a recent storyline, Trey Savage pitches out of the bullpen the other day in Double A. What do you make of that? And is there kind of some side eyeing going on at them making that move?
Yeah, I've kind of been asking about, hey, is Trey gonna like come up this year since like April? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of been on my radar. It's just like obviously the equation changed when the team was apparently very, very good. Like it wasn't always going to come up in September just to get a taste on a 75 win team. It's like, okay, now he's going to actually have to help winning if he comes up. But yeah, he's been on my radar for a while and just hasn't done anything to kind of dissuade that. He had like a bit of a control blip kind of right into the All-Star break. I think his
Yeah.
first couple starts in Double A, last couple starts, the control and command have been very good. I don't think he walked the guy in his last outing. So, and you just look at like you can kind of read between the lines and what they're doing. They gave him like 2.5 weeks off around that one batter faced at the Futures game. Like, there's a reason he only faced a batter at the Futures game. There's a reason he didn't pitch for those 2.5 weeks, and it wasn't because he was injured. Like that was an intentional time off, so he can kind of continue pitching through the end of the minor league season.
Yeah.
And he's going to have probably a few innings left. They're aiming for, I think it's like 120 to 130 innings. I don't quote me on that. I'm not sure if that's the exact kind of target, but that's like the general, like he could jump to this. He's still got a lot of bullets left this season. So yeah, we talked about how big of a pitching crunch this team already has. We talked about how like Alec Manoah is going to have a tough time factoring in. Jimmy comes back, it's going to bump someone else. Like, yeah, it's going to take like injuries or different performance, or a hole would have to open for Trey, but he's doing everything he can, and the organization is leaving that door open for him to potentially pitch down the stretch because maybe it's a starting role, maybe it's he comes back out of the bullpen, but that arm slot, the stuff he has, like that, it just looks like it's going to play at the big leagues.
I can picture like the first Roger Center outing for him would just be like electric. Him either coming out of the bullpen, running out to the mound to start. I can just imagine like it would be incredible just to kind of like see the atmosphere around that. But beyond him, I mean, kind of the rest of the way here, the minor league season has about a month left. Are there any other specific storylines that you're kind of following or, excited to see how they play out here the rest of 2025?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. General storylines, I don't like. I think the way, like Ricky Tiedemann's an interesting one
Yeah.
to watch in the next 6 weeks. Like, there's a chance he gets into games at the end of the season. Probably not big league games at this point, just because he hasn't got out there. But at the very least, I kind of expect him to go to the Arizona Fall League for like what feels like the 20th time with him. But he's kind of an Arizona Fall League legend at this point. But
Yeah.
I think we seeing how he looks will be interesting because he's more of like a forward-looking, could be an immediate impact on opening day next year, whether it's out of the bullpen or maybe he's pushing for a starting rotation spot with a bunch of other guys with the Alex of the world at the back of the rotation. Another one like Victor Arias has had
Yeah.
like a crazy run this year, and like he's kind of like an analytic darling with like some pretty impressive exit velocities and like some pretty speedy swings that a lot of people talked about with Addison Barger when he was back down in Double A. Like it's not the same home run power. He's not going to be the same guy as Addison Barger. But he's like a really toolsy guy who added like 10 miles an hour to his outfield throws. And when you see kind of the jumps and like the ability for a guy to like figure out his weakness and go an improvement, that's like not something that's only going to be for his throwing. Like this
Yeah.
guy's very clearly good at like getting better at his holes. So I think he's a guy who we could be talking about as like a top 10 org prospect this time next year.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot of love, it feels like, just around even just the prospect sphere on like Twitter and stuff.
Yeah.
I wanna ask you a little bit about the team, just as far as going forward. Big series again against the Cubs, and then they get the Rangers as well. So, you go from the Dodgers to another team right near the top of Major League Baseball, and then even the Rangers, who even though they sputtered a little bit recently, definitely came out hot. Uh, any thoughts in terms of the litmus test that these next two series will be, and just moving forward, anything that you're keeping an eye on as we approach September and the stretch run really ramps up?
Yeah, I think it's the way I'm looking at this is they're facing like yeah, these are important series. They're kind of at this point they're battling for a bye. Like it's yeah, they wanted to win the division, you want to make the playoffs, but like these next like 3 or 4 weeks will really determine if like a bye is realistic down the stretch. Like can they hang in that? So beating these good teams is important for that. Like the games that are really gonna be on my radar are the Matt Boyd, Eovaldi, DeGrom, and Paul Skeens starts. Like it felt like all last year and at times like even in previous eras of this Blue Jays team, there's been like the oh that's just good pitching, you tip your cap to it. This team is like beating good pitching. They've proven they can do it. Like yeah, they kind of got smoked by Blake Snell over the weekend. Like that did not go well, and Blake Snell was kind of pitching at his best in that one. Maybe you tip your cap there, but they haven't had to tip their caps that much this year. So this is a week where you're going to see like four of the 15 best starters in baseball, maybe even less. Like honestly, all these guys could come top five in Cy Young votes in a couple months, and I wouldn't be surprised. They probably will. Actually, I'm going to lock that in. All those guys are going to be top five Cy Youngs, Matt Boyd included. And so this is like a crazy week to see. All right, like how do we do against good pitching? Like they got to DeGrom a little bit. Like they didn't strike out against DeGrom early in the season, like which was crazy. So having like four Cy Young candidates in the span of 10 days is a interesting little test. I think you're definitely going to want George Springer back for that. It's going to be a welcome back to the big leagues for Andres Jimenez in a fun little way. So they're going to be fun games, and it's yeah, you're probably not going to win all four of those. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's how do you match up in the guys you're going to be facing in October?
It's going to be compelling. It's a complete flip from last year. I think we talked to you around this time last year, and it's a much different team and much more enjoyable to kind of be having these conversations rather than evaluating who's gonna maybe stick from your minor league group. But Mitch, this was great, really great stuff. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this. As we said, have really enjoyed all your work at the Athletic this year. We will continue to follow along the rest of the way here as the Blue Jays hopefully give you more interesting stories to write and more games to cover once October starts up. But really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and thanks for joining us once again.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime, guys. Always happy to come on. We'll see what's the most possible games. Could be 180. Ooh.
How many games can we watch in one year?
George, too.
It'd be a good little workout, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to the full-time beat job. Yeah.
Exactly. Welcome to full-time world beat. Welcome to November baseball.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that is Mitch Bannon, the Blue Jays beat writer at The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at Mitch Bannon. that is going to do it for us here today at the Bird's Eye View Podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons if you're watching on YouTube. You can find us there at the Bird's Eye View Podcast. If you're listening along on the audio provider of your choice, make sure to drop a follow and review. You can follow us all on Twitter. I am at Worden_Zach. Jori is at Jori Negin-Shecter. And the pod is at BEV_pod. Thank you so much for listening.